I agree with a lot of what Michael Dunleavy says. We disagree and don't see eye to eye too. He made a post, and I'm not calling him out specifically. This is just to get the point across, like where like if sales reps go above and beyond and do extra stuff and generate their own leads, they're entitled to like 50% of the revenue. I'm like, dude, like
Mm.
to me that is just out of touch in terms of how much it goes into running a business. Dude, sales reps have it good. You're on a good offer. You wake up to a full calendar every day. You have a CRM full of opportunity. You don't have any sort of financial risk at all in terms of the business. You have no payroll at the end of the month. You don't have to worry about any sort of FTC regulations. You have no taxes to pay on the business. You only manage yourself and that's it. And you get 10% of what you're generating. That's pretty fucking good.
Welcome to Behind the Sale. I'm your host, Princess B. On this show, we talk about sales and leadership in the high ticket space. My goal is to help you level up your skills as a leader so you can close more deals and transform more lives. Today, we have Nick Elia on the show. He is partner and CEO at Win It Sales slash Done For You Sales. He has 11 teams now under his belt that he's managing, doing between 2.5 and 3 million a month. I
Mhm.
know. Not too long ago, he was selling copy machines, 3K copy machines, and that was the beginning of his sales career. So I'm
Some of
excited
those
to
machines are like six figures, dude.
Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Excuse me. He was doing, super high ticket before high ticket was even a thing. So I'm excited to pick your brain and learn about what it takes to just lead at the level that you're at because it's honestly very aspirational. So, Nick, before we dive in, can you share a little bit of the backstory, how you got into sales? And yeah, let's take it from there.
Yeah. I graduated college in 2015, and my first job out of college was selling copiers. Before that, throughout college, I wanted to be in the music industry, and kind of my big vision is still to buy a music venue and have a restaurant and all that. That's a different story. But I was selling like concert tickets and doing bookings and selling tickets to events when I was in college. But like my first real sales job was selling copiers out of college in Indianapolis. I wore a suit to work 4 days a week. I drove around in a company car. I literally walked into doctors' offices and manufacturing facilities and that was my discovery and that was my triage. And then I would go back to the office and call people and try and set appointments with like the CFO or the COO, the person that was actually going to be signing the papers. So those were like my first two sales experiences. After about 14 months in copiers, so silly to say that. I moved to Thailand. I was there for 2.5 years. I opened a business while I was there. It was an absolute disaster. Then 2018-ish, I found kind of the high ticket space, started my own marketing agency, did decent, but really the only thing that I liked out of it was the sales side. I hated the fulfillment side. And then 2019, I started at a company called Traffic and Funnels that I'm sure a lot of your viewers have heard of. I was there for 2 years. I was the lead appointment setter. I ended up moving into, the manager of the appointment team. I trained under Josh Johnson and Peyton Welsh, who like taught me most of what I know today. But as a producer, I broke every record at that company, most deals in a month, most revenue in a month, most revenue in a year, most deals in a year, most in a week, in a day, whatever it was, you name it. I broke it. So I did 5 mil in sales there in my 2 years. So I was averaging like 250 a month while I was a producer, managing a team that was also doing between 1.1 to 1.5, I should say. Um, so I left TF 2021. Then I kind of wandered a little bit. People started hitting me up for like sales team consulting and sales team training and stuff like that. And 2-ish years later, I'm here running a multi seven figure sales agency.
Yeah, no big deal. Wow. Okay, that's really cool. Every time I think that I'm a trailblazer, I just remind myself of all the records you've broken, and I'm like, relax, princess. You're just relax.
Yeah, but you're
um,
badass too.
I
You're
try.
super badass. Yeah, I mean, I think like I think to be a trailblazer, like you have to be a freaking stud. And I think you have that for sure. And some of the stories you've told me and some of the stuff that I've seen just working with you firsthand. But it ain't easy to be on top and it isn't easy to break records at like bigger companies. And, people want to make 10K a month and then that entails producing 100K a month. You want to
Hmm.
make 10K a month, you got to produce 100K a month. And it's like, we interview people that are like, I did 300K in my first year. I'm like, bro, you did 25K a month and you want to make 12K now. You're just not even close to that. So I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but
No, but it's true. Like a lot of people want to be trailblazers. A lot of people want to break records. Like I'm sure when people heard you mention all the records that you've broken, they're like, shit. Like, because not a lot of people are out here doing that. And I
yeah,
think in general in this space, the bar is pretty low. I don't
it's
know.
really fucking low, dude.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks that. So
Yeah.
I enjoy, breaking records when I join teams. I'm curious for you, what were you delusional? Like, what is it that you had that made you feel like, yeah, I
Oh,
can
I
just
have to
do it
be.
even though no one else has? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be delusional. And I think I was in, I don't know if how familiar you are with traffic and funnels, but like the culture there was delusional and it was mindset, mindset, mindset. And to a certain point, right? Like I'll speak about this publicly now, and like I disagree with how mindset driven it was over the long run because there was just such a neglect on strategy and actual doing business the right way. But that 100% served me at that point in my career, and it got me to the point where I am today. But you have to be delusional, I think, right, to like break records. And back then for us, like doing 15 to 20 high ticket sales, which like our price point was 9,800 and 24K at the time. Doing 15 to 20 of those was just normal in that environment. Now I get into some teams and like people barely do 8 deals a month,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like you
Mm.
think about it, right? Like 20 deals at 10K a pop, that's how you do 200K a month. It's that simple. It's only five a week. And obviously there's things like marketing and call quality and setter quality and all of this different stuff that plays into, you know, comes into play. But I feel like the bar is low because even doing 10 high ticket sales on an offer is like not a lot of people are doing that right now.
Yeah. What is it that you feel changed? Was it just the traffic and funnels culture, like within that ecosystem, or the space in general that shifted to make it like not as, I don't know, easy to, or I don't know what the word is, but not so common anymore to do 15 deals a month?
I think, and I don't know. I mean, I look at like a Cole Gordon, right? Like, obviously, Cole has a huge company and there's other big companies out there. And it's like, dude, if you're not doing 20 a month on STA at Cole's team, or if you weren't doing 25 a month on RCA when it was around, and we could talk about all the things that we disagree with, that how Cole runs his business and with RCA. But from a sales performance perspective, those guys are freaking dialed. If you're not hitting those numbers, you just simply don't make it. So I think it's a few things. I think programs like Sales Mentor and programs like RCA and other BizOp high ticket programs have flooded the market with a lot of suppliers of this service, if you will.
Mm.
And naturally, when there's entrance, right, just economically, when a lot of people enter the market to supply a service, and that's essentially what salespeople do, the standard of that service is going to drop. So
Yeah.
that's the first
Okay.
thing. I think the second thing is it just depends on what is acceptable at the company that you're at. I think that's what TF did so well. It was unacceptable to do less, genuinely, you know?
Okay.
And I think
Yeah.
even when at sales perspective now, we still have we could hold people to a higher standard. It's freaking hard at scale, and maybe that's an excuse and a limiting belief on my end. Um, but I think it's those two things. More people have come in
Yeah.
with lower standards naturally, lower talent, lower experience, and then also companies accept it as okay.
Yeah. I think it's okay to acknowledge that it is harder at scale, but that doesn't mean you don't try. And
Sure.
I don't think you not, oh God, English. I don't think you don't not try. I don't think you allow that.
We do try.
Yes, you do try. That's better. I don't know why I'm throwing negatives in there. Because like I know like with one of the accounts, the one that I'm on, it's like when we raised the standard, we had to like let go of some setters and just so it's like it is harder to maintain a certain amount of talent if you are going to hold a higher standard. I think that's just natural,
Yeah.
but quality over quantity, right? Something I'm really curious about is how the heck you're able to manage so many companies, teams, and be organized because you're everywhere and still you're on top of all the data and everything. Like
Yeah.
I didn't realize like I noticed this like when I jumped onto Ben Brown and I saw like, oh shit, like Nick is all up in this too. How are you all up in every single business and still like it's not falling apart?
Um, it feels like it's falling apart sometimes, but I think, man, we've learned a lot, we've failed a lot, we've made a lot of mistakes, and like it still is chaotic. But the first thing is we have a target that we're shooting for every month, and we know our numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have each individual sales rep do projections. We create a team projection on each team, and then me and the coaches that help me run the teams, we know what those numbers are. We know where we're at every day of every month. We know what we're on pace for. We know if we're not on pace for the target that we hit, we could figure out what the problems are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it starts with that. It's just actually having a target and measuring it every single day. And that just kind of guides us in terms of where we need to direct our focus.
I want to get into like managing soon-ish.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely like going to take a page out of your book and be all about the numbers because that way you can have conversations around the numbers and not about feelings. And that's something you've brought up in meetings sometimes is like, let's just focus on the numbers, you know, especially when there's a slump. It can feel bad and all this stuff.
I think that the data at least like grounds you, because if you're not tracking the data, it's just so easy to be emotional.
Yeah.
And like the data is what it is. Now, is it good or bad? I don't know. It depends on what we're measuring against, but it is what it is, and there's no argument there. So
Hmm.
at least the only thing that we can agree on is the actual numbers. Then in terms of the solution or why we are here, that's a bit of a different challenge to unpack. Um, but most people don't even start with the black and white. This is objective reality, and we can all agree on that.
That makes sense, especially when you have so many people to manage. Like it's I can't even imagine with 11 teams. Can you describe the leadership structure a little bit with when it's sales slash done for you sales so we can understand how you are
Yeah.
able to like yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of have like three different departments, if you will. I guess four. We have the management teams, we have the recruiting team, we have the onboarding team, which right now is just Seth Mira, who I think you know Seth.
Mhm.
We'll build a team around him, and then we have the operations team, which again that's just Lindsay right now, but she will have VAs underneath her soon. So it's those four departments. I think what we do is like we find reps, we develop reps, and we retain reps. And if we do those three things really well, then we will succeed. So recruiting is in charge of the finding good reps. Seth and the coaching team on the management side is in charge of the development of the reps. And then the account managers are in charge of the retention of the reps. On the management side, we have pods. We have management pods. We have an account manager, a setter coach, and a closer coach. So our first pod is me, Noah, and Sela. Sela's in charge of the setters. Noah's in charge of the closers. I'm in charge of the accounts. And that's
Okay.
just kind of how it works. And then our second pod is a guy named Jake Hare, who came from the TF world, the Cole world, and then his setter coach is Taylor O'Hare, who I think you're
Mhm.
familiar with.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Jake Hare is kind of doubling as the AM and the closer coach as we're building their roster out.
Ah, okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. What's the most challenging part for you of like being the queen bee on top of all of this?
The most challenging part is just focusing on what's in our control constantly.
Mhm.
It's very easy to point the finger at bad marketing or bad management or XYZ rep. And it's like, we just have to constantly remind ourselves like the only things that we can do in our control is what we need to focus on. And we need to focus at getting better at that. And until we are a 10 out of 10 in 100% of the stuff that's in our control, the external shit doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So I think that's the hardest part. And then like, man, the three things that we do, finding people, finding good salespeople, developing great salespeople, and retaining those great salespeople, like those three things are really hard in itself. Um, I think as our teams are developing and maturing, the demand on recruitment for pod one accounts has gone down. Since we brought SEP in
Mhm.
April and our onboarding process has improved, the demand for recruiting has gone down, which is all great stuff. And now I really think we just need to pour more resources into actually developing better sales reps.
Okay.
So that's gonna be
Solid.
my next focus is like, how do we get better at the development side of things? Pour more into.
Okay. Yeah. Do you feel like you did things in the right order?
I
Or
think
if
so
you could,
because I usually think of like from the top down to the bottom, and like for us, if the third thing that we need to do really well is retain reps, and we aren't even doing good at the finding of the reps, let's fix the finding first, and then let's fix the development, and then let's get better at the retention. And it's kind of like when I look at solving a sales team problem, it's like, well, we want a certain amount of sales, right? And the certain amount of sales have a dollar value tied to it. To get a certain amount of sales, we need a certain amount of calls taken at a conversion rate, right? Let's say 25% close rate. Certain amount of those calls taken needs to come from a certain amount of calls booked at a 60% show rate. Certain amount of calls booked needs to come from a certain amount of leads at whatever the lead to set rate is. And it's like if we're missing the deal units at the bottom, right? We wanted to do
Mhm.
50 deals this month. We only did 30. The first place I'm looking is top of funnel, which is lead flow. Do we have enough leads? Then did we convert enough of those leads into calls? Did we have enough calls? Did we enough of those calls show up? And it's like you start at the top because that's where the water is pouring into the bucket. And then you see if the holes of the bucket were plugged. But like I could have every bucket or every hole of the bucket plugged, but if the water is just dripping out from the top, it's not gonna, the system's not gonna work. I think us starting, we had a lot of recruiting challenges last year. Wrong systems, wrong people, not enough application volume, not enough interview volume. We've since fixed that. We have a list of like 8,500 sales reps in our recruiting pipeline. We have a Facebook group of 35,000 people that we bought. We're running ads on Indeed and ZipRecruiter, and we're looking at LinkedIn ads and Facebook ads. So it's like I'm just constantly trying to stir up how do we talk to more salespeople that are in the market. That's a constant working process, but we've gone from probably a 3 out of 10 there to like a 5 out of 10 this year so far.
yeah, that's really solid.
I still think the development of sales reps is like what we need to get better at. But like, and like, that's where someone like Bill Walsh comes in, or, if you're a Michael Dunleavy fan, him, or like, I even think JD does a good job developing salespeople. And of course, there's NEPQ. Like, those guys are really good at sales coaching. I wouldn't say that's our specialty.
Have you considered partnering with one of the bigger coaches in the space?
I think everybody's at this point kind of sending us people, you
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
I think the tough thing with like, I don't know if I want to say general sales coaching. The thing that I'm trying to figure out is like, how do I make someone a fucking stud on this offer that's crushing 20, 25, 30 deals a month? And I don't know if that should be us doing that development or if that is someone we need externally. But I have been talking to, people to come in and get better. We started this like bi-weekly progress report that the coaches are doing with each of their reps. So we're at least managing it on an individual level. And I think we give a lot of support, but it's like, dude, like how do you get better at helping someone lose weight over the years? I don't know. I haven't fucking solved that problem yet.
I feel like Noah is a good, he's really great at the development side. Like,
My
yeah.
standards are high, right? Like if I was a 10 out of 10, meaning every single rep that came into our system was hitting KPIs 100% of the time within 45 to 60 days. We're probably a 2. And like my standards are high because I think a 10
Mhm.
out of 10 being perfect should be 100% of all of the reps hitting 100% of the KPIs within the development timeline that you want them to be there. We're probably just a 2 out of 10 right now. So it's just hard, freaking hard
Mm.
to solve.
Okay. So another thing too that I noticed that you've been focusing on is like really setting expectations around the culture
Hmm.
across different accounts.
Yeah.
So what I was curious about is one, how do you manage the culture? And do you push to maintain a similar culture across different companies, or is it different from offer to offer?
So from win it sales perspective, I think it comes from setting the tone and reinforcing the tone and having actual consequences if those standards are not met. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's those 3 things. It doesn't have to be that complicated. This is how we operate. This is how we think. This is what we expect of you. This is what you can expect of us. And setting that not just from day one on the job, but like ideally as soon as possible in the recruiting process too, before people accept a job. And then obviously if you make a rule, but then don't reinforce that rule and there's not a negative consequence or a positive reward for, doing that rule and setting that or, abiding by that standard, then it's meaningless. So it's setting it, reinforcing it, and actually having both positive and negative consequences for doing it.
Mm,
That's at the win sales level.
yeah.
Each company is different, man. And I was actually with a client this past weekend down in Atlanta, like having culture in a remote fashion is hard. And I look at traffic and funnels, who probably did have one of the most powerful cultures that at least I've been a part of. I've heard
Hmm.
of some other great ones. We were in office. We were in office every day. I was making freaking dials from a cubicle with Josh Johnson sitting behind me and Jake Grant sitting next to me and Gray Martin sitting to caddy corner and Adam McComb sitting to the left of me. And it's like we were in a cubicle making dials every day at 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. We heard each other on the calls. We went to lunch together. We did fun stuff after work, and like that was culture in my opinion. And it's a lot easier to reinforce that when you hear the guy behind you who's the new guy on the phone, hearing them doing something wrong 10 times a day, and you can just give them some quick coaching between calls. We can't do that in the high ticket remote space. Um, Kind of got off tangent there, but each client that we have is just kind of different. And I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that each of those clients has like this crazy, powerful, family fun, tight knit culture or community, you know?
Hmm.
One that comes to mind is Grow Channels, who is run by a kid named Razvan, 21 years old, Romanian kid, lives in Dubai. I'm going to hang out with him this week at Cole Gordon's Cabo event. Um, he has done an incredible job like setting a culture. He makes it he makes a puts a lot of intention behind having a relationship with everybody on his team. We hit $1 million month. He flew everybody out to France for a week, like 30 of us. He spent like 300 grand on that trip. Like, so he's probably doing it the best that I've seen from a remote way, but he puts a lot of time and intention behind it. But
Hmm.
from win it sales perspective, we just do it with our internal training and on the calls and in our communication with reps.
Yeah, I think the culture is very wholesome, like on the account that I'm on.
I think so.
Like, yeah,
AC is different, right?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think AC has its own challenges, but again, I think culture really starts at the leader of the organization, and that tone is set. And if that leader isn't setting that tone and reinforcing it, doesn't matter. I think I do a good job of when it's sales doing that.
Yeah.
I think that can get diluted as there's layers built in and leadership's teams built in, but not every high ticket business owner does that,
Hmm.
you know?
I mean, when a business is being run by a company like Done for You Sales, I mean, is the onus on the business owner to set the tone as far as culture? Because some business owners, like, you don't even see them, you don't talk to them. I know it's not the case with AC, but with other companies, it can be like that.
Yeah. Um, I think from a company perspective, yes, 100%. Because technically the reps are still working for the company. They're representing the company. They're not representing me.
True.
They're
Yeah.
representing AC. They're representing Dealmaker. They're representing million-dollar firms. They're representing the teams that we're running. They depend on the marketing of those companies to do well. They depend on the operations of those companies to be sound. They depend
Mhm.
on the fulfillment of those companies to be good. They depend on the reputation of those companies to be good, right? And like Win It Sales doesn't control any of that shit. We just
That's
are
true.
in the silo of sales, right? But again, I think sales culture and company culture is different for sure, right?
Yeah.
I think like it gets powerful when it's at a company level, and then maybe it's just a little more intense in the sales department, you know, than the other
Oh,
one.
yeah.
It's hard to hold people, let's say on an operations team that make, I don't know, 60K a year and maybe a 401k and health benefits and they have a W-2. Like, I'm not going to challenge that person as hard as I'm going to challenge a salesperson who tells me they want to make 20K a month.
Hmm.
You just can't. Just doesn't work
Okay.
like that. But that person, that W-2, still wants to feel like they're a part of something bigger and there is a culture. You know what I'm saying?
Business owners, if you guys are not being intentional about setting the tone and the culture, like, get your shit together.
I think it's
Because it
important.
does trickle down. Yeah.
I think it's important.
So,
And we live
okay.
in this, fly by night, quick sale, quick marketing, direct response world. But it's like, I think high ticket companies would benefit from adopting some things from the corporate world.
Really?
Just being honest. Yeah. I think there's a reason why corporate world has gotten where it is today. There's a lot of merit behind multi-billion dollar companies and multi-billion dollar market caps. Like,
Hmm.
um, I'll be honest, the onboarding that we developed, I took that partially from the experience that I had selling copiers. I was in a
Interesting.
2-week in-person boot camp on day one for when I was selling copiers. 10
Wow.
days. They flew me up to Chicago, put me in a hotel. We literally did training for 2 weeks straight before I made one phone call.
That's intense. Yeah,
Yeah.
high ticket is just like, all right, here's your logins to the CRM, here's the script, have fun. I know your onboarding process is much better than that, but it's yeah.
Yeah. But literally. And like if we take on a new client or a consulting client, I'm like, all right, when you onboard someone, where's the training? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, where do you train them? Like, where do you show them the marketing funnels? Where do you talk about the avatar and the problems that they have and the offer? And how do you kind of help them understand what types of people they're going to be talking to? Do you have calls to review, scripts, SOPs, walkthroughs of the tech, any sort of KPIs, admin SOP? None of that is usually set. And I shouldn't say none of that, but like it's very common for that to be extremely disorganized and not well put together in high ticket sales. No wonder your churn is fucking 90%. Our churn is like 80%, and we do all that shit really good, I think.
I think it comes down, it's so many factors, but I think the talent is the I don't know, I would think the biggest one.
Yeah.
Um, Expectations. Everyone wants to jump on an account and make, 10K a month right away, or, well, people are just not training as much as they should be. And I always just, my mind always goes to like, what can the closer do? What are we in control of? So yeah, I think that's one thing that is just isn't enough of. Um, are you ready to pull out your crystal ball? Because I want to ask you like a prediction question.
Sure.
Okay. So you've been in the high ticket space before it was even a thing. So you've seen this space, like the evolution over the last 5 years. So what changes to the high ticket space can you predict from what you've seen so far? What do you think the next couple of years are going to look like?
Um, I think uh, this is tough. I think, and is this just from a sales rep perspective and a sales team perspective?
No,
Overall.
just overall.
Overall, I think people are going to have to get away from this crazy guarantee culture that we have. And I think Hermosi is awesome and smart, and I've gotten a lot of content out of him, but I think $100 million offers kind of hurt the industry a little bit, specifically with the
Ooh.
guarantees. I like the value equation. I think it holds merit for sure, but that value equation has driven people to make these insane promises that can't be fulfilled, that hurt their reputation, and then the promises get bigger and you're competing with the promises, and it's like I feel like, and then also with the FTC creeping in and taking
Mhm.
out Sales Mentor and threatening RCA and taking out other companies, Onyx Singal, Dan Henry, Kevin David. And I'm not saying all of those people didn't deserve it, but it's like, dude, if you're making promises and outlandish claims in your marketing, like you're probably in violation.
Mm.
So I'm hoping we get away from that and we get more focused on actual uniqueness and value in the process and the service that you're providing.
Okay.
We get away from this make 10K a month in 90 days type
Mhm.
of shit. And we
Yeah.
focus more so on the process and the stuff that's in our control and the skill development. And of course, inevitably, we want the outcomes to come from that, but we're not selling and marketing based on those outcomes. I don't know if we'll ever get away from that. I don't know. We'll see.
The thing is,
Um, Go
tell me
ahead.
if you think I'm completely off here, but it looks like we've trained the consumer to want those guarantees because everyone's promising it. And so if an offer doesn't have it, they're like, well, why don't you have one? And then I have to go reframing their mindset. So I think we could do the opposite, right? As businesses, we can train the consumer that it's about processes, it's about learning, it's about the journey, it's about not just like these inflated guarantees, but it's about the actual thing that you're learning. Do you
Yeah.
think we can train them like reverse?
I think from a biz op perspective and like a less sophisticated target market perspective, it's going to be tough. It's certainly going to be tough. I really do. From a B2B side, I think we can get there. Yeah. Or
Mm,
like not, I don't, I say B2B lightly because I don't,
yeah.
B2B to me is when there's multiple stakeholders in place. If you're on a call with the person who's giving you the credit card numbers on the first call, it's not B2B, it's still B2C, but sophistication level, I should say.
Mhm.
And it's funny that you say that because I spoke with a guy a couple weeks ago. We had a great call. And I was just, I sell very bluntly and very logically, and I remove emotions from it. I'm a very data driven person, especially when we're talking about your sales team, because I'm not about to hype you up and make some overpromise bullshit when I know if we don't do the right things in the process, none of that stuff's going to happen. So I focus very much on the process. And I was like, if we do this, this, and this, that's what you need. And he was like, okay, well, what guarantee is there after 60 days? Like, how many appointments are we going to be setting? I'm like, dude, I don't know. Not sure. And he went with someone else, and I was fine with that. And it's
Oh.
like, I'm just not willing to make that promise to someone because it's like, dude, I could tell you, we could look at all of the KPIs that you guys have gathered over the past 12 months, actually make out a real plan in terms of we want X amount of sales, we need X amount of calls at XYZ close rate, we need X amount of calls booked at ABC show rate, and we need X amount of leads and Y amount of dials and Z amount of DMs and text messages and emails and all of this stuff. And we could do everything right and still not get the same result. So I'm not willing to make you a promise.
I mean, that goes to show, I mean, the people who are willing to hear you say that and be like, all right, I trust you,
Yeah.
yeah, the businesses are crushing it. So,
And that's how like, man, we do have some clients with guarantees and
mhm.
those guarantees certainly do help us sell. But the funny thing is like you have this performance-based guarantee or this success-based guarantee, and whether it's money back or whether it's work with you until you hit this, dude, if you don't come in and do the shit, the guarantee is null anyway.
Mhm.
So I'm like, do you believe if you do X, Y, and Z for a long enough period of time, you will get the result that we're talking about? Yes. Okay. So the only thing you're saying is you need to do X, Y, Z. Cool, then fucking do that, right? Like, let's do it. Let's ride. Because if you don't do XYZ, the guarantee goes away anyway.
Yeah. Do you have the same sentiment or thought process with done for you businesses though?
Done for you makes it a lot tougher. And obviously, I am a done for you
Yeah.
business. Obviously, I am a done for you business. The thing is, what I believe with like at least a done for you sales offer, and even like let's look at a done for you marketing agency. Done for you sales offers, I'm dependent on the marketing team performing. If you don't hit X amount of leads and you told me you're going to book X amount of calls booked, and you have an application grading system and the average application needs to be B, right? Whatever. I'm just throwing shit out there. If marketing doesn't hit those numbers, how can I fulfill on the sales guarantee? Also, how do I know that the business owner isn't doing like, right? What if the business owner is doing a live webinar once a week and that's how we generate calls and they go out of town for 3 weeks? Well, the sales team obviously isn't going to hit their numbers, right? What if fulfillment is secretly fucking up on the back end and we get 10 Fs on the BBB 90 days into working together? How is that going to affect my results? So I just think like a done for you offer, I'm going to put the work in no matter what, but there are external factors and I'm going to do the best at what I can do. And I will happily admit when I make mistakes, but also I could do everything the right way. Marketing shits the bed, fulfillment shits the bed, operations shit the bed. The business owner checks out and we're still not going to get results.
It's tough.
It is tough. It is tough. And I think for me, the business that I want to have, I just want to have trust with the people that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 out of the 11 clients that we have, 4 out of the 11 clients that we have, we've just onboarded within the past 60 days since we hired Jake Hare. Sorry, I should say 5 out of the other 7 have been with us for over a year. And it's like, I want multi-year relationships and I want to be a part of the team and I want to have long-term, deeply ingrained, trust-based relationships. If
So
we
true.
have the right relationships, we'll be fine. And like they'll trust us. And I know that you'll make mistakes and you know that I'll make mistakes. And if we can live with that and communicate through it like adults, awesome. We'll be fine.
Yeah, you're so blunt. You're just like, this is what it is, and that's that on that. Cool.
Yeah. And the first thing that I look for, it's funny, we were talking about culture. The first thing that I look for is just like relationally, are we a culture fit? Like, can I make a dirty joke and you laugh about it? Because I'm probably going to fucking do that when we're working together. And if you don't think that's funny, this isn't going to last, right? Can I challenge you on how you're doing shit in the marketing department? Are you willing to challenge me on how I'm doing stuff in the sales department when I need to be called out? And like, if we're just not on that wavelength together, it's probably not going to work.
I'm curious, are there any other changes that you foresee in the high ticket space or in sales in general?
I think that there's going to be a lot of people. I don't know. Maybe there's going to be some people exiting. I think it's going to be like top 10 to 20% are going to be doing, the big majority of the production. That's probably already the case right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think setters and the model is broken. And I don't think the bottom 80% of setters are going to be around for much longer, especially first world, like Americans and UK and Aussies and Canadians are they're way too expensive and not productive enough. So I think that's going to get outsourced to stuff like chatbots and stuff like the SDR call center that Matt Ryder is building out. I think there's going to be a lot more people doing stuff like that. And I want the top 20% of setters, but I want the top 20% of setters to have inbound calls that are triages, and I want them to be stacked all day and have 6 hours of talk time. So I think that's going to change. I don't know, to be honest. I've never been good at like predicting what's going to change. I think that paid traffic is getting really freaking expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a solid organic strategy or a solid brand or something super unique and sexy that you can market, like you're gonna fail. Like these VSL leads and VSL call bookings are getting more expensive. Um, Even just opt-ins on Facebook are getting more expensive. Contact rates on leads are getting more expensive or going down. Show rates on cold traffic to book a call are going down. So I think until like if you're not building out an actual well-rounded marketing strategy with multiple lead sources, both paid and organic, while building your brand, I think your marketing costs are just going to get way too high, and you're going to
Mhm.
lose.
Okay.
Um, so I think like those are some things that will start happening and are already starting to happen.
These are really good golden nuggets for people who are thinking about starting an offer because it's so many variables to think about. I talk to so many closers who want to create their own offer one day. It's I think it's just because we see like how much money we're making for the business owner and we're like, shit, if I were at the top, take all of that instead of 10%. So I think it's really good to like consider like do you want to actually have all these factors on your plate to manage? Is that something you actually want? If so, I would recommend like any closer who's serious about doing something like that to connect with you and just have a conversation because you're a genius when it comes to this stuff.
I'll tell you what, being a salesperson and being a business owner is way different. I agree with a lot of what Michael Dunleavy says. We disagree and don't see eye to eye too. He made a post, and I'm not calling him out specifically. This is just to get the point across, like where like if sales reps like do go above and beyond and do extra stuff and generate their own leads, they're entitled to like 50% of the revenue. I'm like, dude, like
Ooh.
to me that is just out of touch in terms of how much it goes into running a business. Dude, sales reps have it good. If you can get on a good offer, for sure. And I will very much hold that caveat up because there's a lot of shitty offers out there. But like, dude, you're on a good offer. You wake up to a full calendar every day. You have a CRM full of opportunity. You don't have any sort of financial risk at all in terms of the business. You have no payroll at the end of the month. You don't have to worry about any sort of FTC regulations. You have no taxes to pay on the business. You only manage yourself and that's it. And you get 10% of what you're generating. That's pretty fucking good.
Yep.
So I very much challenge any sales rep who like has a pattern or a habit of like making fun or really challenging business owners and the status quo. I accept challenging the status quo, but fully understand the context before you do that. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
people are just out of touch of what that actually looks like day to day in terms of being a business owner.
Yeah. And a lot of conversations behind closed doors, a lot of closers. I'm guilty of this sometimes, just being like, I could probably run the business better. It's just like, we have no idea. We
I've
have
been
no
there.
idea.
I've been there. Trust me.
Yeah.
I've said that. I've done that. And when I was at TF, I felt like that. And I would challenge a lot of stuff at that company. And I did leave because I didn't agree with the way that they were doing things. And then I got into this and like, we're doing okay. We did 1.2 last year. I'm hoping we can crack over 2 this year, which like our first full year was 2023. I think that's not bad, but there's people that are way fucking better than us. And I think we've made a lot of mistakes as well. But yes, running a business is not being a sales rep, period.
Yeah.
Like, it is not
100%.
the same.
Yeah. Okay. Are you ready for the rapid fire question segment?
Yes, let's do
Yeah. Okay. These are going to be so random. Okay.
it.
All right. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Time travel for sure, because I mean, if I could essentially predict the future at that point. And I think our current reality is a sum of all of the decisions and thoughts and feelings and beliefs that we've had up until this point. And if I could alter that current reality in the future, like, I mean, I can't imagine any other better superpower than that.
Name a bizarre talent that would surprisingly come in handy in sales.
A bizarre talent that would surprisingly come in handy in sales. Oh man, I don't know. A bizarre talent I don't know how bizarre this is, but like my sense of humor has given me a lot of positive things. I don't know if that's bizarre, but I would say it is a talent to a certain extent. Like if you can be funny and make someone laugh, like they will open up and it just makes the conversation so much easier. So, but is that
Okay.
bizarre?
Ah, no, but I'll take it. If you had the opportunity to put a quote on a billboard in Times Square, what would it say? It could be a quote from yourself or someone else's.
Seek discomfort. I
That's
think
good.
I think growth happens when you're uncomfortable and people don't seek discomfort enough.
Mm,
You avoid discomfort.
100%. Yeah.
If more people looked for uncomfortable situations, everybody would grow faster and the world would be a better place.
100%. I think it's a good one for a billboard too, because it's applicable no matter what industry someone's in or where they're at in their life. So, yeah. What's your leadership style in 2 words?
Um, 2 words, leadership style, merit based. Merit wins always. And to me, merit comes from results. So we run things that are when it's merit based. If you have
Yeah,
results, you have merit, and we will listen and we will make decisions that are in alignment with that.
solid. Okay, last one. If high ticket sales was a sport, what would be the most common injury?
Man,
A head
uh,
scratcher.
honestly, I hate that I'm about to say this, but like broken mindset.
Ooh.
I think I take that as the it's plaguing the industry.
Yeah.
And take that as it will, right? Like that can mean a lot of different things and it's pretty vague, but I had to limit it to, just one thing. And I think that's it, right? There's a lot of people with broken freaking thought processes and beliefs and decision-making processes, and they're in this industry, and that's why they don't have the results that they want.
Oof. It's so true though. It's an epidemic at
Yeah.
this point.
It's just
Yeah.
worldwide, right? Like, I mean, I could shit on the industry all I want, but it's worldwide, right? Like that is probably the biggest injury of everybody. Their brains don't work well.
Yeah. I'll happily like shit on the industry though, because this is a performance-based industry.
100%.
So you've got to be sharp. And
100%.
that's what I was alluding to earlier when I said like so many people are missing that. Like they're not treating it like it's an Olympic sport. Closers, setters, we're just not. And that's what's missing. I think if we did that, the standard would be higher across the board. Recruiting would be easier, managing teams, everything would just be easier if everyone took it seriously.
100%.
Yeah.
And I get it. Genuinely, I want deep down in my heart everybody to have like the financial and the time freedom that their hearts desire. I think those things are earned over time. You're not entitled to that just today.
Hmm.
Right? You're just not. And dude, I was chained to a freaking desk for 2 years, grinding my ass off, building this business for a year. And like, am I saying that everybody needs to do that to that extent? No, but like, I've earned what I have right now. And like,
Hmm.
I'm not crazy rich, but I don't have to worry about money. I am not like backpacking and living the world, but I travel when I want. And I've been to 2 different countries already this year, going to a third, going to live in Medellin, right? Like, but I've earned all of that from the blood, sweat, and tears that I've put into the game. And this shit is hard. You're
It
not going to
is.
10K in 90 days.
I would hope that at this point, closers coming in know that, but it's almost like when they come in, they get funneled through. It's like a process everyone has to go through, thinking they're going to hit that in 90 days, being disappointed, feeling like a failure, wanting to give up, and then learning what it really takes. It's like I feel bad for people coming in, but we got to earn it, like you said. So that's the blood, sweat, and tears, I suppose.
You got to pay your dues and you got to earn it. And again, I mean, that goes back to what I hope changes in the industry. Like, I hope we stop making those fucking promises to people so the expectations can get aligned and we could focus more on what's in our control. But yeah, this shit is hard. I think you interviewed Patrick Foote, who's on one of
Hmm.
our teams.
Yeah.
Patrick Foote is still to this day the only rep that has ever told me when we hired him, he believed that this was his career now and he was going to be
Wow.
doing this forever.
Interesting. I think, yeah, everyone's a little bit one foot out, like, let's just see what happens kind of thing. Or let's looking forward for what's next. Oh, if we had more time, I would pick your brain about playing the long game because that's something you talked about on Taylor's podcast. I wanted to kind of dive deeper into that.
We could do a
Yeah.
live on that maybe on.
Okay. Oh, that would be cool. Yeah.
You
I
can
think we
come in my group and we
Mhm.
could talk about that.
Okay. Awesome. Totally down.
Perfect.
So before you go then, as the
Yeah.
guest of honor, can you propose the challenge of the week? So every week I propose a challenge or my guest proposes a challenge to the listeners to move the needle to become the 2.0 version of themselves. So what's
Hmm.
something they can do this week?
I simply challenge you to honor every commitment that you've made to yourself this week.
Hmm.
100% of the time. No excuses. If you made a commitment to yourself, do it.
Yeah. It
Simple.
goes a long way. It's like you show up better on your calls, you show up better in your life when you just know that you're not the kind of person who bullshits themselves. Like
Yeah.
so simple.
Yeah. I almost did it this morning. I almost skipped the gym, but I got my fat ass out of it and I went. And it made me a better person, right? And I challenge you really to do that for 100 days. And when you
Mhm.
do that, you will feel like a new person. You will actually be a new person. But even if it's just this week, honoring 100% of the commitments that you've made, you'll be better.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nick, for coming on the show. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, if you thought this was a dope, insightful, eye-opening conversation, then give it a thumbs up. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. That way you don't miss future episodes. As always, as well, don't forget to hold yourself to a higher degree so you can be the most effective leader you can be. Until next time, bye, guys.